All right. Well, happy Monday as recording, whenever day you're listening to this. This is DevOps Decrypted. I am not your usual host. I am a substitute, as our host has taken a small leave. We are talking about something that may also relate to like being slumpy about not wanting to run on a webinar because the world is like, we're so tired. Have we completed DevOps? Have we defeated like the final boss? Let's talk. Well, today here we have a sort of like reduced panel. It's me, I'm both hosting and panelist. And we have Matt Saunders and Jon Matt here today. And let's see, do we care about making a DevOps Decrypted thing today? The world is so meh.
Oh, Rasmus, it's a beautiful day out there as I look out my window in this September in Cambridge. And okay, it's not. So I can understand your ennui right here. But yeah, how did we get onto this when we were planning this episode? I think it was around.
I was moaning about how like innovation, like you look at the iPhone, right? And what's the like?
Yeah.
This big Rasmus house around the iPhone, and literally it's like, oh, there's a bit of a better camera. Oh, and we added some buttons. And it's a bit faster, and it's a bit, the battery life is a bit better, and so and like I don't think there's anybody rushing out to stand in line to queue up all night to get the new iPhone. It's just a bit better. It's just incrementally a bit better. Are we? Is this and that got us thinking? Is this the same thing with like DevOps? I mean, like, what's the next big innovation that's coming, or is just everything just incremental?
It felt like we went through this whole pandemic, and like the world was going crazy, all these weird things, and AI, okay, all these things, and it's kind of like, you know what? I think we just kind of stopped and like started squeezing things, and like, well. Yeah, okay, that was fun. Now let's get back to normal, get in the office, start like firing people to improve the bottom line and all that stuff. Even AI has stopped kind of innovating-ish, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, we have to. There's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? There's, I mean, new iPhone. What are we? iPhone 16 now? 17, 18? I've lost count. Is it? Yeah, I think we were riffing on if it's the same in software. It's like. In DevOps, it's like everybody's got all their code in a proper GitLab or GitHub or some sort of proper source code repository. Everyone's doing tests, CI. Everyone's got cloud native environments already and done. And so everything that we see coming out now that's new kind of isn't. Or is it just that we sit maybe at a bit of an apex of where maybe early innovators sit, and from our perspective, the things that we're doing, we're so trend-setting. We've kind of been there, done that, and there's a whole load of majority of people who haven't actually got to this yet. And so the incremental tools coming out, the things that are just a little bit better than the one before, but not really. Maybe that's what those sort of people need to get with the program. Or is it just done? Have we killed the final boss and we're done?
I kind of want to blame Chrome for this, for like ruining version numbers. It used to be that like version 2, like, wow, that's amazing. And like version 3, we can have a third version. And it's like, oh, welcome to Chrome 142, which is just about as meaningful as the iPhone 16. I mean, just like, what?
So I see that as a success for agile and continuous delivery. It's like, there's a new one comes out okay, so the schedule is probably a little bit waterfall-y, right? I don't know how often a new Chrome comes out or a new Firefox, so they do the same. I'm sticking to Firefox. I'm sorry, I'm not moving.
Use other browsers, not just Chrome.
Yes, exactly. Actually, I'm on Zen browser at the moment, but anyway, it's a Firefox derivative. Yeah, version 137 of Chrome. I remember talking probably 20 years ago to some software devs who just sat in a room for I don't know how long it was. It felt like 4 hours discussing whether the release that they were putting out should be under the rules of SemVer. Actually, this is before SemVer was probably a thing. Should this be a major version release or a minor version release? And starting to dismantle all of the bureaucracy and, frankly, hyperbole around like releases and versions. And now, like, I can look back at that with hindsight of like the DevOps movement of releases not being a thing anymore. And so, yeah, version 137. Yeah, so what? I don't know. My Firefox over there, I have no idea what version I'm on. I just know that it's a new one arrives, and it's almost inevitably a non-event, which is a success for continuous delivery, right?
Yeah. I'm feeling a little bit connected to that too. I used to be Firefox fan. I might go back. I can't close all my tabs to switch browsers. Like I can't do it. But I am thinking about going back to Thunderbird, because I tried this like new proprietary pay for some fancy like desktop organizer, and you know what? They stopped innovating, and then it's kind of started slowly breaking apart. And it's like, why am I using this and paying for it when I can just go back to Thunderbird? Is that happening elsewhere? Because I hear things about like Amazon and these fun things about what they're up to.
So just riffing on that, so it's weird how, from my perspective, the world's kind of changed around a bit. It used to be like, there's all this innovation going on, which often happened in the open source world. One of your favorite subjects, I know, Rasmus, going back 15, 20 years or so. And then, like, open source projects would stabilize and get boring. And at that point, people started building new and interesting things on, well, for some definition of interesting, put a price tag on them, and off you go. There's commercial software there. And if that's true, I don't know if my viewpoint there is particularly objective. If that's true, has that now reversed? And we're now like seeing innovation happening in the open source world again. And that's where the interesting stuff is coming from.
I would like to think so.
I'm not sure. I think there's some of the business models that around open source that I think are like are kind of interesting with like, how do you defend your IP that you're like, how do you and you've got the kind of like the open core model, and there's, I don't know, I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit, but I think it becomes very problematic as a to say, how are you gonna make money on the investment that you've put in around things. I don't know, Rasmus, where you
oh yeah, it's just yes, it's all this like Elasticsearch is open source again. Like, what? No, that's too late. You don't get to take it back. That's crazy. And then Sentry comes out with something called Fair Source, which is like the same thing, but we named it something else. So hopefully we can avoid some of all the like, you took it away, you bastards. But
tell us a bit more about the Elastic change.
Well, okay, sure. I mean, it's all over the internet as usual. There's drama, because apparently, originally Elasticsearch went from being open source to using one of these, I forget which ones, like business something license, where you can't compete against us. But sure, you can play with our source code and contribute it back so we can make money off it. And then, surprise, surprise, nerds didn't like that. They were doing it so that AWS couldn't just, drop in their solution and sell it to their customers, which they no longer could. So as a result, naturally, Amazon forked it, made their own version. Now that's being used. And oddly, Elasticsearch guys are okay with that. Like, yeah, okay. Or, all right. And then they got to the point where, well, we're okay with it now, so we're going to make it open source again. And like, huh? But you like burnt your community. It happens all over the place, like Redis and others. It's just... But it seems part of this whole like weird innovation cycle and like squeeze things to make more money and...
Yeah, but the timing of that I found was interesting as well, because it was, they were just changing it back to the AG, or changing it to the AGPL, just as OpenSearch was being contributed to the Linux Foundation. I thought that was curious timing.
Yep. Talk to me one day about Jenkins and Hudson.
I say similar thing there. Something's going to get donated to the community that's very similar, and all of a sudden the value proposition of the thing that you've got, which is used to be open source but is now proprietary, is reduce because of a competitor coming in. Is that what we're saying? Or a competitor coming in and making their thing open source? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, or just the community goes somewhere else. You like risk losing interest in your product if everybody goes somewhere else. Like, talk to me about Terraform and all that fun stuff. It's just I'm gonna get sad, you guys. We're gonna have to talk about something else.
Oh, and we were already sad when we came into this episode, weren't we? So
I know. Let's talk about that funny AWS thing about like not being a monopoly, right? That was fun.
So that's so not the big thing that everyone is talking about, the RTO. Let's leave that one alone.
Yeah, no, let's not talk about any RTO on this things unless it's a recovery time objective.
Oh yes, liking the cut of your jib, Mr. Mort. So Amazon is not not competitive. Did you say, Rasmus?
Apparently, it's weird.
So this is the UK Competition and Markets Authority saying that Amazon is a monopoly, which, I mean, there's at least 4 big cloud providers out there, right? So, is that?
Yeah, I wish one day people would take Google Cloud seriously because I love it. Like, just use Google Cloud and then prove AWS that they have competitors. And a competitor that's not people off-clouding to their on-prem equipment being a competitor to your cloud provider.
This argument I find is just fascinating as things. It's absolutely I don't know. It's a beggar's belief. Actually, this is an argument that like AWS shouldn't be considered as a monopoly because customers are kind of repatriating workloads. And so, therefore, they have choice. I think it's fascinating as a as a whole argument. But yeah, I think there's a in my mind, I think at some point we'll need to have an element of regulation or something, and treating kind of public cloud as a public resource to be consumed like a utility.
I like that.
And I think that would be that would be an interesting move in the market, and see what would that do for an AWS or a GCP Azure.
Yeah, it's an interesting turn of events because I mean, you mentioned the word utility. That was the dream, wasn't it, when AWS first launched S3 like 15 years ago, whenever it was. Utility computing. Let's like get these things on demand. You can just pay for it, and there it is. And I guess it's just a natural evolution that we get to a point where a single supplier has an undue influence over the market because they get big, because frankly they succeed and they do well. So yeah, I suspect it's at the point where regulators do start to get involved.
I think we're like certainly in the UK we're one step towards that, with the data centers being a designated critical infrastructure by the government. So there's things like the electricity grid, the water, and data centers are now kind of being thrown into the mix, which I find a very interesting move, because most of the value of data centers is the things that they run rather than them in themselves. And how do you defend a data center where actually you have the logical part of it and the physical? So just defending the physical doesn't really help that much, or it helps just a little bit. But it's I think that's one step in that towards that direction.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of how back in the late 90s, the world woke up to the fact that whilst things like telephone networks were part of critical national infrastructure, the country needs them to actually function. And then it all got very, very murky when you start having internet providers and things like, well, should the government run their own their own fiber everywhere to run government type services, and then that then got all mixed in with the public networks as well. And now, here we are with things like cloud services, the logical and the physical nature of those. And we're highly dependent on all of them. I mean, so much of the Gov UK stuff in the UK, particularly government digital service, is running on AWS. In fact, probably all of it now, because they've had a mandate to do that for a very, very long time. So it's not just people watching TikToks anymore.
I kind of think in the back of my head that at some point you commoditize something so much it gets incredibly boring, and maybe Amazon is there, and whenever something new comes out like Gen AI, the moment there's a stable offering of it on AWS, it's dead. Like at that point, yes, you have slain the final dragon. It's on Amazon now. It's over. But then if you go and use it, is it actually all it's hyped up to be? For like cloud workloads and all that, I kept coming back to like, well, I mean, there are all these people going off cloud because they want to save on money. But then the point of them going on cloud in the first place was to save money. But could it be a combination of like having your on-premise stuff because it's yours, it's cheaper, and it's like safe, but then only use the cloud for elastic stuff?
Well, I think there's been a whole lot of cargo cult in cloud. Like there's a whole lot, we do that just because with things, and you expect a bunch of benefits, and really you don't need all of the the resilience in and things that. So I think there's been a lot of cargo culting down that. But what I will say, I was having this conversation earlier actually, in the around AWS, they do innovate, like they ship. So I think if you're making the argument is like, is it dead if AWS has got it? Well, I think no, because AWS they ship fast, they ship a lot, and it's like the speed to which they had the language models in Bedrock and things there is like I think super fast, and things as an example, I think once they know what the problem is, as the organization as large as they are, they ship pretty quick, and I think that is one of the things that you can guarantee with them, is that they will be if there's an area of problems, then your problem area aligns with them. You're going to be able to innovate with them. You'll probably also find some other providers that can do the same.
It'll cost you.
I think we need to be clear on what we mean by dead here. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Rasmus, when you say dead, I think we're talking about where innovation is happening, where people are doing new and exciting, well, not necessarily exciting, but new things and solving problems in new ways. And some things have kind of died, but they're still there. In fact, they're still probably even more vital than they ever were. It's like running instances, EC2 instances. We don't really talk about that anymore.
Maybe it's less dead, more boring and dependable.
Yeah, boring and dependable. And frankly, I'm all for it. I want a whole load of things to be boring and dependable, so that I can then think about things that are more interesting. I love being a Linux sysadmin. I still do love being a Linux sysadmin. I still mess around with that stuff on my own personal little empire, running my mum's email, that sort of stuff. But the problems that I'm solving at work are not how to get an Apache server to serve up pictures of my holiday. It's the world has moved on. It's the same with what you said about AWS there, John. They've been copping some flack by actually end-of-lifing some services, which they just haven't done. I mean, we make jokes of it. It's like it's a TLA soup, a three-letter acronym soup. Everywhere there's like so many of these things out there that it can be really hard to navigate which ones of them to use. So historically they haven't killed off old things. Things like code commit is being killed off. But the reality is that the number of services is still growing massively. Every reinvent, there's new things, and they're all things that are building on these old, boring, dead things now, and they're innovating there and solving our problems. We talked about saving money. I think everybody goes to the cloud to try and save money. Nobody actually succeeds. because as soon as you're there, you find all these new fancy toys that they've got that solve the problems that we ordinarily thought we had to solve, but they've solved them. So, yeah, that's why.
So if it's less dead, more like boring and dependable, with occasional bits of neat new stuff, are we dead?
You're getting very, very meta here, I think. I think I used the word ennui earlier. It's like, yeah, nothing's new. Nothing is actually interesting. And I think we should probably actually celebrate that, frankly, because it does mean that we get to do the things that we're supposed to be doing. Or we can redefine the things that we're supposed to be doing as being more business.
It feels like maybe this is a good time to close out our depressing DevOps Decrypted episode. Do we have enough ennui in the room?
I'm excited. I'm going to do all these things that aren't doing all the boring things that I used to do.
Yes.
Fine.
That's fair. I am also thinking about some boring things I need to get to and to enjoy. But hey. So for now, I guess I will just say that thank you for listening to our episode 28 of DevOps Decrypted. Next time we'll have Frank from Beta Next on to talk about a particularly cool DevOps project. Ooh, that'll be fun. So feel free to comment back at DevOpsDecrypted@Adaptavist.com and do all the usual about liking and smashing subscribe buttons, but nobody does that anymore, you guys.
Don't say that. Make them do that. Yes, please do that.
Okay, just do it if you feel like it, just, yeah. But yeah, have a nice day.
See you, Marvin, the paranoid android.